Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Chris Richards with the Growth Labs podcast brought to you by UX Bright. And today I'm joined here by a dear friend and colleague in the go-to-market space, Eric Rodriguez, the owner of Owly Moments. And he's been a Silicon Valley expert in go-to-market in a manufacturing space, particularly with in the semiconductor space, and then tons of experience in the e-commerce and larger enterprise spaces. So super excited to have you on, Eric. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's going to be great to just hear from you.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Likewise, yeah. And today's episode we're talking about go to market for teams in 2026, and what does that mean, and how do they retool? And so for new listeners, UX Bright, we're a go-to-market firm. We help people build products or market those products from a product marketing perspective. So we work very closely with software as a service, AI firms, e-commerce businesses, all in the name of helping you build better marketing and sales engines to better increase your conversions online. So, just our conversation about go-to-market today is just so important because we've seen the space evolve so much just over like the past 5 years, not even looking at the past 10 to 15, right?
Yeah.
And just curious, before we hop into actual GTM, just give the audience a little taste of your background. We'd love to kind of hear how you got your start as a GTM expert.
Okay. Well, back in 2019, I had an opportunity to work for InRiver, which is a software platform. They're headquartered in Malmo, Sweden. What they specialize in is product information management. So basically what that is it's a platform that brings all the contextual content together so that you have your digital assets, your visuals, and your written text for clients. Like I would have clients like Lincoln Electric, Estee Lauder, Carhartt, Milwaukee Tools. And basically with our platform and the other systems that connect to it, when you're shopping for that Milwaukee tool at Home Depot and you see the videos and you see the text that gets you to want to go buy that product, that's what product information management is. And so by working with them as a business solutions architect, I learned a lot in that industry. So as you mentioned earlier, in the Silicon Valley, I came from semiconductor, capital equipment, manufacturing, robotics, nanotechnology, all that hard tech stuff. And then seeing this runway for digital commerce and product information management was just something that I could tell right away that this has a lot of legs. And as you said, it is definitely evolving in multiple fronts, between customers wanting or clients wanting that personalization, like New Balance. New Balance is trying to figure out, how do I get that in-store experience or that vibe with the shoe and so forth, and everybody's going at it a bit different, like furniture retailers, Crate and Barrel. You have that camera and you see what the couch looks like when you have your cell phone. What's that couch going to look like in my living room? A lot of different things.
Right.
So being a solution architect, systems architect, those systems coming. And so coming into seeing what you're doing with the go-to-market platform really answers what I call the missing question of the last mile. So, and what I mean by the last mile is that, like, say, for example, in InRiver, we were focused on using AI to improve the contextual content, to say that these bullet features are the best bullet features that we can have to make you want to buy that pair of shoes. But you don't see, how is that user that's scrolling on the web, are they doing the reaction or the scroll and so forth, and the feedback. That's what I mean by the last mile, and that's what you guys bring to the table.
Yeah, the feedback part is so important, right? Because in my experience as a product owner, we've always been taught to keep your user feedback loop very close to your product development, right? Like at no point, and not just product development, also part of the product marketing. And so I think what you're saying is spot on, because we saw similar things with other e-commerce brands where they spent thousands of dollars a year or a month potentially on ads, marketing
Hmm.
spend, and only to find out that some of these activities weren't as effective at driving the actual intent behind their marketing
Yes.
efforts. So uh, that closing that feedback loop I thought was so important, and um, where the technology has brought us today, which I think is really interesting, is um, we can now have digital feedback of how your users are using your web app or your e-commerce store. And
Hmm.
you can combine the qualitative, like the behavioral aspects of how people are using your brand or interacting with your brand,
Hmm.
and combining that with the quantitative data that marketing teams are already gathering. Like
Yes.
analytics tool tell you what happened, but they don't tell you why.
Right.
And oftentimes that, and I'm sure you could probably attest to this, a lot of times figuring out why a campaign worked or didn't work, A/B testing, and really trying to understand what aligns with the customer to say, hey, I raised my hand, I want to buy.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the campaigns of what's mostly the common metric of why is a campaign working good or bad is the revenue. How much
Yes,
product did we
exactly.
sell?
That's the bottom line.
That's the number. That's the main, like, but the intricate details of what is that prospect doing on the website that tells me that, they're not even looking at that section, say on a main landing page,
Yeah.
you might have those tiles that show these different services that we offer, and then lower down the page below, further down you have another thing of offerings and so forth, and you're marketing towards that first section, okay, and they might not even be going there, based
Right.
on what your target is. And so with all the push of how do I get better content, there's that feedback mechanism, like you mentioned, that closed loop that can tell you, yes, that's working or that's not working. Look at how many seconds they landed and then they went away. Or they never even landed. They were in some other sections.
Right.
So,
Did they just go to your about page
yes.
and say, "Oh, I didn't like what I see," and left?
Yeah.
Um, and I consider it the digital equivalent of 100 people walked into our store, and
Mm-hmm.
then 50 of them walked back out without buying anything. I'd want to know that
Yeah.
for a physical store owner. And
Yeah.
so what I found interesting, at least in the e-commerce or just physical retail space, there were a whole team set up to do planogram design. What are the aesthetics in a store to help you navigate towards those purchase journeys.
Yeah.
And I believe now the same thing is happening on the digital side, is we
Mm-hmm.
have to start setting up these purchase journeys in a way that actually aligns with what they're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's interesting because, like, I'll give you an example. Like with Milwaukee Tool, they were looking at the quality of the content. And so part of the AI tools internally that were on the InRiver platform was to say, hey, this digital asset is there for this channel, but that product on another channel, say for maybe Home Depot or on Amazon, that's missing a digital image or so forth. And it's looking at, like, from that lens of, is everything there? Is everything whole? Is everything complete? But not looking at, like, what we're talking about is, now what's that user journey? What are they
right,
doing on your website? And it's from what I'm seeing, and and running it on my website too. I mean, learning, all right, what's my friction points? What's my
right,
call to action? When I'm telling people, hey, connect with me, go to my website, go to my LinkedIn icon, and then we can connect, because I didn't have the stuff that I'm doing. It was easier to do it that way in the conversation. So they see the website and then they can go, like, and I can see that movement of, oh, hey, they clicked the LinkedIn icon, and so
yeah,
we can connect and have further conversations. But that's just a small piece of it. But
right.
the tool is very, very powerful.
Yeah, and to that point, when we were doing a bunch of our own research when we were originally building out the UX Bright tool, we were talking with marketing teams, agencies, and executives, and the pattern was pretty clear. Everyone had fragmented systems. They couldn't connect the user experience or the visitor traffic data to what's actually
Mhm.
converting online. And
Mhm.
when it came to the personal accountability for the marketing team to their executives, they couldn't put together a full go-to-market funnel report that really explains, like, okay, here's where the leaks in our revenue are happening. And so I think that, from a B2B perspective, this is something that you could show. I was actually having a conversation with someone earlier. The power of this is you could show your executives where things fail, or where experiences are actually being shown, rather than just guessing data work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
we could see that, hey, Mr. CEO, you put forward this initiative and an agenda and people aren't buying. Well,
Mhm.
I could put that in a video as opposed to, oh, here's a graph with some numbers and data, and I hope to try to persuade you that this thing is happening. You could see it
Right. Right.
in reality.
Right. And that's a good point because in the B2B space, that's a different type of purchase and experience versus a B2C where, the consumer is just going to go ahead, look at it, and then go buy the shoe, the saw, the perfume, the,
Right.
retail. But B2B, like for example, when I was working with a major fire hydrant manufacturing company that, their main thing is reselling, or not reselling, but providing material for two of their major B2B clients, customers that then sell to municipalities and so forth.
Mhm.
So with your tool, that portal that's created, because usually you have individual portals that go to each one of these, different channels. And so with company A and company B, you're able to see that interaction with the tool, with the tracker, to see what are they selecting, what are they going after, what are they requesting, an RFQ or so forth,
Right.
to have that communication, which is a whole nother level of interaction versus
Yes.
the D2C, B2C reaction of searching and saying, okay, I'm going to go buy. And that's powerful because then you can see, what do I got to optimize in, say, my quote process or my configure
Right.
to be able to deliver a better quote. So yeah,
Right.
this thing has so many applications. It's
Yeah, and I wanna
crazy.
live in that area for a second. The difference between a B2B go to market strategy and a B2C. And
Mm.
just from that, right? As you mentioned, they're totally different strategies, and there's different ways for how you could cut that cake. But for B2B though, I know the biggest statistics that I saw was most B2B buyers are spending 70% of their time researching your brand before they even talk to sales. And so
Hmm.
the understanding for me as a B2B business was, it's not a service or some features on my landing page that I'm selling. What I'm actually trying to make sure that I put out there and make visible is my credibility, the case studies, what are the
Hmm.
impact stories that are
Hmm.
driving outcomes for my types of clients. And
Hmm.
that's what they're looking at. Hey, is this a new firm? Do they have any track history? And can we
Hmm.
trust? That's the ultimate
Yes.
piece. Do I trust them enough to say, hey, here's my information, let's book a meeting, or I'll move to the next commitment step? And so
Yeah.
I found, definitely B2B, there's more to that process than just direct to consumer. But
Yes.
direct to consumer is its own beast, its own different psychological
Yeah.
beast, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
you're selling at scale and you're selling directly to consumers. I could have a one-on-one conversation with a B2B owner and get feedback, but from a larger perspective on the D2C, I'm kind of playing with like psychographics, right? Like how are people emotionally buying something and
Right.
encouraging conversion processes,
Yeah.
right? Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Can
there's
you talk a
different
little bit
types of
more?
people.
Right.
Yeah. I'm going to say on the B2C a little bit and then go to the B2B. There's different
Sure.
products. So say, for example, you may have the analytic, like when I'm looking to buy the earbuds, the Bose earbuds, because I got an Android. Well, I'm looking at Best Buy, I'm looking at what's on Amazon, I'm looking at, and I'm comparing, I'm diving in the details. There's other folks that
Right.
just, well, let me see that video. Let me see. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, and that looks good. Or people look at reviews and stuff. Different people approach it different ways. From a B2B setting, you are having a target like, this is what I need, and it's complicated. It could be like the example with the fire hydrant and big systems. These are like $500,000 systems that are
Yeah.
being purchased to repair a ruptured gas line or so forth. So you've got a lot of different moving parts and stuff that are one-time builds or batch builds. And so when you have a supply chain person that's buying this type of stuff, they need the details. They need to go into, like, specifications matter, and
Yeah.
how are you positioning those specifications so that people can see that? Is it with drawings? Is it with, different things, which goes again to that website, okay? And then, as
Yeah.
you said, for the GTM platform, to be able to see, okay, what's resonating, and are people more interested in specifications or performance or so forth, lead time? I know when I was also like a director of supply chain when I was in California. And
Mm,
one of the things that we would look at, and when we're researching a company, is it's not only their main landing page, but go to the about page, because the
correct.
about page tells the culture, the history, where is it, what's their, so
Yeah.
it's, there's a lot of information there that then can give that marketing team, okay, I need to add more information in this section or that section. You know, the other piece that's emerging is like digital twin technology that a customer could use with that visualization piece
Right.
and making it easier to display, because these one-off systems in like Chicagoland, you got food processing, you've got industrial automation manufacturers that they're just fitting in one segment of the whole line, and that piece of tool and that ability to make something, custom. Those buyers want to be able to see, okay, well, what makes you so good? Why should I go with you? And it helps that marketing team answer those questions.
Yeah, 100%. One of the things that we were looking at, especially, so we talked about B2B and the difference between B2B and B2C, and those frameworks are really important. And one of the things that I'm really pulling from this, and I'm just like hammering it in my head, is know your ideal client profile, know your ICP,
Yes.
kind of like the
Yeah.
back of your hand, right?
Yep.
Because
Yep.
and being so specific with your ICP, so much so that
Mhm.
you know the psychology of how they're thinking, that you know
Mhm.
what their buying
Mhm.
patterns are. Hell, you
Mhm.
even know what type of schedule their daily schedule is
Mhm.
like, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I've found that working with companies, the clearer that we could define their ICP, the clearer their marketing becomes, the clearer the
Yes.
sales copy becomes. And then, and saying, I was just saying, I was talking to someone earlier, saying no is actually going to be the most powerful engine for your go to market, because you're honing in on the target. So it's say, hey,
Mhm.
let's say if I'm a web dev agency, I should not say, hey, I'm a web dev for everybody. Hey, you need a website, you need a website, you need a website. That's not going to be the best go to market for agency. But for me,
Mhm.
if I say, hey, I do web dev agency for medical firms who just started out, need a
Yep.
presence, that's
Yep.
perfect. Very specific. And we can get even more specific. They're doing X amount in revenue and they've recently hired, recently hired.
Mhm.
So knowing the ICP is super important. But there's another
Mhm.
part of the go-to-market stack that a lot of platforms are using, and I wanted to talk about signal-based intent data. So how do you know that a company is looking for your product or service? So, for example, in our use case for UX Bright, we do a lot of digital transformation projects. So for us, that might be scouring a few different key accounts to see if there's new RFPs. So we'll join different distribution networks where RFPs are being submitted to, right? And so, for us, early agency, that was our first early go to market strategy. Can you talk a little bit more about that, and how brands can navigate go to market today?
Yeah, one of the things that I see, and this, from a signal or knowing your market, your ICP. For
Right.
me, when I saw last year the value of digital twin application technology in what we call the CPQ space, which is configure, price, and quote, because it's so complex, it's usually
Mhm.
technical to technical. But how do you visually see this piece of industrial robotic equipment and it's, that I'm selling? But then there's also understanding your competition,
Mm.
of one of the things I learned from the product was the SERP analysis. That SERP
Yeah.
analysis and some of these signals of a signal of how much market is out there. So when you look at digital twin and the Google Analytics of the last year, on average, it's about 18,000 searches a month. That's not
Right.
a lot. And one of the top highest searches is Wikipedia. People are trying to still understand, okay, what is this digital twin? And then I can see what's McKinsey doing and what's
Right.
NVIDIA doing and what's IBM. And all those three are not competing in my space of precision machine shops, CNC manufacturing, custom semiconductor suppliers that supply to semiconductor fabs.
Yeah.
And in that type of that's another area of signaling for the marketing team of, as you said, like, where are we going to shoot our cannon for the
You,
ICP? How do I develop that? And this gives me some other background information to say, okay, boom, this is the lane that I'm going after. And I have a way to be aware of what is my competition doing. Because, for example, NVIDIA, they're applying digital twin on warehouse management, big,
right.
large warehouses to do simulations. And they're also doing it on big shipbuilding, like not barges, the cargo ships and all of
Right.
that. Well, that's great. That's great for them. And we're in this space,
Right.
and it gives you that opportunity to learn what they're doing. And when you see on their page, and you can take some of that concept and so forth and apply to what you're doing in your world. So that enhancing the ICP profile and then understanding where do you fit in this market and how much room do you got? Is it a very tight, oversaturated market? Then it's like, hey, I got to come up with some really creative stuff to go compete.
No, absolutely. You give some of our users whether a sense of some of the tools or automations you might use in your current go to market stack. I'd be happy. I'm not sure a few what we use, but just curious from your perspective what you see work well in most settings.
Well, what I've seen, and this is say from the client perspective, because they got so many different endpoints, and this is from a PIM perspective, say Milwaukee Tool. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Their channels, are going to be Home Depot, their own website that's powered by, I think it was like Sitecore or Magento, one of those two. But then you
Okay.
have, what do I got on Amazon? So let's just say these three different channels. All right. Those product marketers, they're looking definitely at revenue, what's being sold, velocity. They're looking at what is my time, project management, time to launch a product. How am
Yeah.
I leveraging data governance for because I got my inbound feed, my ERP coming in, using a hell of a lot of Excel spreadsheets for sure, or SQL, using SQL data,
Right.
that they're doing. Now, for me as an entrepreneur coming in, the tools that I was aware of it was really just leveraging some of my strategic partnerships that I had with digital twin, like with RenderDraw, custom developers, like with Omega Point, just really organically, you know, targeting people that I knew within the network and going to different conferences to get really more up to speed and re-engaged because I had a big network in California in the
Yeah.
semiconductor space. So by going to Phoenix to Semicon West in October, that really helped a lot, So I'm coming from a world of where I was mostly fixing or helping extend a customer's capability from a systems integrator. So tools like Grafana to see how many calls, why is our time to deliver data taking so long? So you're
Yeah.
seeing, well, this call is taking 500 milliseconds, just this one API call. And that's way too much when you're talking that call shooting 350,000 times in a 24-hour
Yeah.
period.
You
You
start
know?
getting that scale,
Yeah.
that's where
Yeah.
optimization makes
Yeah.
sense. But yeah, give us a sense of, I guess, with your entrepreneur stack, how you're looking at go to market, assuming that you're not using big enterprise solutions.
Yeah. Well, that's where this tool, I have to say, comes in because it it corrects my friction points, by looking at things where, when we put this on March 16th, and now it's whatever, today's April 29th, I've had about 120 visits to the site.
Mm,
And that summary feature of not just looking at the individual transaction of them going to land, but now I could take a group of transactions, like 19 or 20, by selecting that page or taking it by the date and taking that sample size. Now that I got more data, I can see overall, all right, my call to action, like that podcast, that's what I was focusing on for building my brand. But that was the other tool. Let me circle back. LinkedIn, doing postings,
yeah, there you
getting the
go.
brand out last summer, all of that, doing stuff on that. That also helped to get people to know that I understand a digital twin, I understand manufacturing, and I understand digital commerce. But
Yeah.
with your tool, able to see, all right, hey, your call to action, it's not clicking. All right. And I know the reason why is because we were at that mode of when we were working on the website, is just to have it established. So when I was going to the
Yeah.
conference, that there is, okay, here's the website. And so now it's on the side of, let's improve it. So that podcast section, I want to take that out and I want to put it in for a white paper, a
Hey,
application
there you go.
for
Building credibility
digital twin.
right, credibility right there
Yes.
off of the landing
Yes.
page, right? And then that gets
Yes.
them interested. Yeah. No,
And then the other thing too is learning from there is that my services page, now I can start adding other services, that it's not just digital twin, but it's also like the e-commerce. It's also like go to market,
right.
advisory and stuff of that nature. So, and I mean, that competitive analysis is a game changer. That one to really see, like I learned that because I was talking in Austin just on a LinkedIn a video post that I did, and it was titled PXM and digital twin. I had, PXM in those markers, hashtags, that when we Google search PXM and digital twin in a keyword search, my name comes up there in
Yeah.
the
So
in
you're
the top
finally,
in the top 10. And I was like, wow, there is some visibility there, although it's very low volume of stuff, but you could see who are you competing against. And it tells me that there's few people that know both sides, hard tech and digital
yeah.
commerce, to bring that together. So,
Right. And then, and yeah. And so, just to you give the audience just a, quick recap of just some of the different tools and components of part of your go to market stack, right? So we talked about the website, right? The website is
hmm
part of that fuels your almost your entire marketing stack, really.
hmm yeah.
It hosts your newsletter, hosts your services, your portfolio, credibility, right? So
hmm
firms, if you treat your website like a static brochure, your visitors will treat it as such and they'll dip, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so, the website's super important. Social media, LinkedIn, just seeing the credibility of your brand, like another
hmm
buyer could say, hey, what is Alley Moments? And look you up on
hmm
Google, even find that post.
hmm
That's credibility right then and there.
hmm
To
hmm
say, hey, he must
yeah.
be a leader in the space of PXM and digital twin. Okay, he must know his stuff, right? And then you combine that with you start putting a Google business profile, you start
Yep.
adding more
Yep.
content on YouTube,
hmm Mm-hmm.
So socials is the huge component of that,
Yeah.
right? What?
I forgot
Oh, I was gonna
some
say
of the other tools.
CRM.
Go ahead. You go. You go.
I was gonna say CRM and email. Those are
Yes.
the other
Yes.
two that I wanted to touch base on, right?
Yeah.
Because as you were
Yeah.
saying earlier, hey, you're having all of these different deals and conversations that are going on at once. It just start to become a mess, right? After a
Mhm.
while, from a sales perspective. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then what we
And
found with
so,
CRM is like it can also run the source of truth for your automations, right?
yes. Yes.
Because
Yes. And so when I've been looking at different things. Definitely a CRM is needed. And there was a toss up of, all right, do I go with the SMB side of it with Salesforce or something like HubSpot? And definitely I would say HubSpot is more affordable, and that scalability for it has definitely, that's the one that I went with, and that's definitely helped out as far as keeping the accounts there, the to-do items, the follow-up, your chain of how do you communicate and track. I forgot to mention some of the other tools that I use is the LinkedIn. On the professional account, you got the analytics. So I can see on my postings
yeah,
what has been going since I started, which was like September 23rd of 2025. And you can definitely see the rise of impressions and so forth, and what's resonating and what's not resonating and stuff. So that's another good from a branding perspective of who you are as a subject matter expert. The email side is both from a network connection that I know of someone and hitting
right.
them through a DM on LinkedIn from that relationship, or then also following up from an email to add more content. I haven't done as much of the cold emailing as much yet, but there's definitely application and process for that. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it's probably fair to say, and let me know if you've seen similar. We found that just doing one channel probably isn't good enough. Like just doing a
Right.
cold, a warm intro. You should more
Mm-hmm.
than likely connect with your ICP on 2 to 3
Mm-hmm.
different, areas, just so
Yes.
they can see the visibility,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, connect with them on LinkedIn, then follow up with email, and then
Mm-hmm.
worst case a phone call, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
in front of them, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, this multi-channel acquisition approach that is a big problem that most firms are trying to figure out how to do,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
manage all the complexities behind that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and we found that if you just focus on like your top 3 channels to
Mm-hmm.
start, that's usually a very good starting point. Would you say that's a good advice?
Yes. Yes. Definitely to go with three, and even if you don't have three, you're working to get to three. For example, what we call at the enterprise level the marketplace, a marketplace versus a CMS, a website. So would be, all right, Milwaukee Tool has their website, their major land, but
Mm,
they also working with the marketplace of Home Depot,
right.
Amazon, and those have very structured rules of how you connect to give your content to Home Depot, to Amazon, to Walmart, to Best Buy. All of those are marketplaces that customers want to go, B2C customers want to go to go deliver content, you know.
Right.
Now there might be another channel depending on the size of the company that you're looking at a B2B portal that within your public website, but now you got to log in because now I have this business relationship side of the house. So
I think we lost.
it is definitely okay. Can you hear me now?
Repeat that. Yeah.
Yeah. That last part was the B2B portal too, is another area. Like from a business relationship, you have your website, and usually there's a little area that you can click in, and then it's a dedicated line of communication, company to
Yeah.
company. So that's gonna be, that's another channel because that's now you've established delivery of content, but opportunity for upsells and so forth, and for other things that could
So
happen.
live chat, adding that to your online experience, you say is a
Yes.
really good one. And I think that tracks, especially like a local service brand. We were working with
Mm-hmm.
a cleaning company out of Chicago. One of our
Mm-hmm.
most immediate recommendations for their website was like, okay, let's add a live chat, right?
Yeah.
Can you uh, can you establish that communication channel quickly? I
Mm-hmm.
think that's super powerful.
Mm-hmm.
We've got so many great insights, and I'm sure me and you could be talking a couple hours on it. But just in terms of our podcast episode today, what's those last little nuggets of wisdom that you want to leave our audience here today? If they're a business owner trying to figure out their own go to market, or if they have a marketing
Yeah.
team,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say are some great pointers from Eric to walk away from?
I would say one is, as we talked about earlier, understand your target market, your target audience. Where am I shooting that marketing campaign cannon to be able to get in revenue, to get in purchases, to get in, is really understand that. And the supplement of that is that ICP, the ideal customer profile. And knowing that these are living type living
Mm,
type entities, because things can change as, say, your
yeah.
roadmap changes and what you decide to make as far as another product. So having an understanding of that, of where am I going to go sell this stuff. The other big piece, though, too, is that product that you're selling, does it answer the question, what's in it for me? If I'm a
Mm,
customer, are you solving my problem? Is what I have I can stand by it, that it solves that customer's problem,
yeah.
and that you can articulate that, and knowing that you've got a really good product, then it's a matter of having that marketing strategy and so forth. And as owners of companies, you need to understand too that you're not the smartest person in the room.
Mm,
You need to be able to staff with people that, one, are competent, that you can trust, that they can disagree with you, that they
yeah.
can, that you can really assemble a team that invites a culture that can go make a difference and make a change. And know that, hey, if I fail, most of the times when you're somebody, in a project or so forth, it's okay to fail. The key is how fast can you recover?
Right.
And then you're asking for the right support. So those would be some of the things that I think are essential, as we go to
Yeah.
work.
Those were fantastic, especially in the marketing perspective. You don't know what you don't know sometimes,
Yeah.
right? And I know at least when I was initial founder and doing my first marketing, I thought the marketing in my head was going to be effective, and then we hit the pavement with real users, and then it was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And so just that delta, just keeping yourself humble and knowing what
Hmm.
people want, and
Yeah.
always being in alignment with that.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
take you a
Hmm.
long way to go to
Yeah.
market. So no, this was fantastic. What's the best way that people can get in touch with you, Eric? They want to learn more about Owly
Well,
Moments
they
or
can,
digital.
one is they can go to my website. It's owlemoments.com. And there is a form you can fill out to connect with me. To make it a little bit easier, there's a LinkedIn icon. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I check that often too. You can do a reach out through there, and it'll get you to my LinkedIn page. And that would be those are the two best areas to get a hold of me.
Awesome, fantastic. Well, we should super appreciate it. We're totally gonna have you on for some more because there's so much to the go to market space that we could uncover. We could deep
Yes.
dive on marketing go to market. We could deep dive on
Yeah.
sales go to market.
Oh,
So
yes.
look forward from hearing some more from Eric here soon.
Yes.
So
And next time I'll be in my home office instead of my mobile office.
right. Well, we still appreciate you having coming on. So thanks so much. And this is Chris Richards with the Growth Labs podcast. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great one.
All right. Thanks. Take care. Bye.